Hello lovelies and welcome to my first build challenge. I wanted to build a micro home, and for me this was really a big challenge. It took me 2 hours to do, which is insane considering I can do a big build in about the same sort of time. Not a huge one, but maybe like a 3-bed build. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and I am not used to that such a small space. It drove me a little bit crazy. So we started off trying to figure out how many tiles was 32, and then I started to shape my build. This build is based on something I had originally done before. It's a lot smaller than that, and it took me a little while to realise how much smaller it was compared to the ones I'd already built. So it's based on like a little traveller caravan, and I wanted it to be quite a natural area, and also off the grid was something else I really went for. I kind of debated about it, ended up putting a TV in, because I really fell in love with the one that came with Tiny Living. But at the same time, I stuck to my guns. I knew what I wanted, and this was essentially going to be a nice little off-the-grid house where you've got lots of crafting and things available, and it's quite homely theoretically. So as you can tell, I had a lot of trouble with the roof. The circular roofing just didn't want to fit as I was hoping, and I couldn't remember what I'd done before. So I kind of just went with it and tried to create a circular part on the outside with the hipped roofs, which went absolutely crazy. It looked really silly, in all honesty. And then I kind of settled for this idea of having a little fence where I could maybe put flowers or ornaments on. The second biggest challenge was trying to figure out colours. I love this build, I love this style build just because of all of the colours. That was my favourite part about doing this before. The reason I'd done something that I was already knew how to build, mostly because then it was more focusing on size, and I also love doing these little houses, and this was obviously very little compared to the ones I had done before. But it was the colours. I don't get much chance to do anything with lots of different colours, so I ended up doing something I'd already created, but I was hoping to put this on just as I was building. But as I said, it's taken me 2 hours to do, so I've had to speed it up a little bit, but it's nice to actually see what's going on. So I had done the little house smaller in a hope that maybe I could make it a bit smaller than under the 32 blocks, and then I remembered I need a bathroom, so I decided to go for a little outhouse style bathroom. Windows was a big challenge for this. I like the small windows, I like these ones for decoration. I didn't really know how to settle on a shape or a size. I had absolutely no idea, and I do end up going back to some other windows because I really wanted to use some curtains. Quite simply, that's what I wanted to do. So I started with placing the biggest object possible, which is the Murphy bed. I had no idea how this was going to fit in, and I was really hoping I could section it off into 2 different rooms, so just add in half walls so I could kind of make it like its own separate area without going over the top with lots of walls and making it really confining. I took the walls out. It was a lot smaller than I thought on the other side. Definitely wasn't going to fit a sitting area and a kitchen. Kept the inside quite plain, as in colour wise, just because the outside is so vibrant that I wanted to maybe calm it down a bit, have a little bit more of a relaxing area. And then I kind of start thinking about the main features that I needed. So kitchen was the first thing I went with, and even at this point I was thinking maybe 2 counters are a little bit too many. I didn't know what to do. I was like, now I've got to find a room for a sink. Do I need a fridge? And I actually did not put a fridge in it in the end, and I'm starting to think that was a big mistake. But there's also none that are off the grid, so I think I'm going to have to go back to that, because I completely forgot that. I was like, I'm going to come back to it. There aren't any that are available off the grid, so fingers crossed I actually remember to add that before I put it on the gallery. So, mental note right there. So, I had a lot of struggle with where to place things, and I do end up using BB Move objects a lot just to add more to it and hope it's usable. It is usable. I have played, tested, like made sure that I could go into the bed, etc. Especially because there was only half a square each side, so that was a particular worry of mine, that actually it won't be usable. And the position it is at the moment, it isn't usable, but it does get moved again. But I turn on this tube on and off so many times just in an attempt to make sure I don't go past that Murphy bed. I mean, at one point I probably had 2 seats just sitting there, and if you would opened up the bed, it would just have like 2 little backs of chairs sticking out at the end. And so I kept turning that on and off in a hope it would help, and it did. I kind of feel like that one particular space where the bed comes out is so empty. It's ridiculously empty. But it works well, and ultimately I feel like maybe you probably need that space just to try and make it a little bit more. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, as per usual, but basically everything was so cramped, it was nice to see a bit of space in somewhere. I really went all out on the pack with Movie Hangout stuff pack. I thought this was perfect for this build. It really went with the vibrance and the colour, and this pack was essentially everything that I wanted in this build. It was there and it was ready, and it just looks a bit odd. You've got lots of different colours and things going on here, but I feel like they come well together to brighten up the home and to also just kind of make it a little bit more cozy and a little more vibrant. And I'm pretty sure I just said that. So I love the idea of having the lights in here that weren't so over the top, so I ended up putting lots of little lights in, standing ones. And if I use Alt, you can then avoid all grid automatic placement. You hold the Alt button down and you can sort of squeeze it into other places, and it doesn't have to sit directly on the squares anymore. You literally have all of the room in the world. So this really helped in putting the lights in. And then I sort of changed my mind, thinking that actually it looks too much, there's so much space being used. And this was it. I'm really not used to having to worry about space. I normally have builds where I can have like 3 different living areas, just because there are so many rooms. And then even in that living area, you've probably got 20 odd squares that are not used, and I've just got to add decoration to try and figure out what to do with it. I love these little terrarium plants. They're in the Movie Hangout stuff, and they go really well with the new ones for the tiny living as well. I tried to stick with the smallest amount of packs possible. Because of it being a smaller home, I felt like if I just went crazy with the build mode, I would not be finishing ever. I would just keep going. And I believe the main packs that I used were obviously Tiny Living, Movie Hangout that I've already mentioned. There is also Laundry Stuff pack, and I cannot remember the other one, but I believe I actually managed to stick to 4. And that in itself is a big challenge for me, let alone building something so small. And I absolutely love this build. I feel like whoever does these builds, you're a special kind of crazy. You really are. But I love you for it. I really do. This is not something I could do on an everyday basis. I would happily go around and go crazy with these giant builds that take me weeks to do. But this small build, I honestly, this was a great challenge for me. It really was a challenge, that's for sure. And there was not much that I didn't find difficult. I got on with the interior just because I knew that was going to be the work. I had the idea of, because it is a off the grid lot. And obviously I've said about this TV already, I do get rid of it in a little while once I realise and it sort of clicks that actually I can't have the TV there if I wanted to do this. I needed means of making money, because I was idea of that the Sims that live here weren't gonna necessarily have a job, and I really wanted to kind of include that in the whole flea market that we've got. So I add a lot of things on the outside that kind of go with the nature and things. And I remembered that the other pack I used was Seasons, and I believe that is the full 4 that I used. Anyway, so carrying on, that I put outside the woodworking and other things, and I tried to section things off a little bit just to try and give it a small sort of garden, but kind of have a workspace as well as like a sitting area. And I really wanted this to be like an outdoorsy like build. I didn't want it to reflect so much on the inside, and to me that's the only way it really worked as well. I feel like there was a missed opportunity in the toilets. I don't know if you've seen them, but you can get toilets that have the sink that attaches to them, that either on the top, and you have a little sink with a tap on the top, or right next to it. And I feel like that was a really missed opportunity for a tiny living pack. And as I was doing the bathroom, I really was sitting there thinking, what am I going to do about the space? So as you can tell, I didn't put a sink in. I add an outdoor sink. Kind of, it works well. The sort of sink that I chose as well, it was the one with the laundry pack. And so it didn't seem quite so bad having an outdoor sink. And I'm still not quite settled on the idea, but there was only so much space I could figure out, and this was a way to get around it mostly. So I went crazy with the decoration just to try and, I don't know, when you see the little caravans, and I don't know what to call them, I feel bad if I use certain words here, but I don't know how to describe them. And you know, they're all colourful. You quite often see red ones, and they have swells around them and lots of really pretty designs. So I used the Seasons decorations on the wall decorations to really cheer this up. For the garden area, instead of going over the top with plants, I decided to make more of like a potted plant garden, just so it kind of gives the feeling that actually this area isn't necessarily somewhere you're going to live forever, that this is maybe you get your plants and everything else and you move around a lot. Everything I've sort of designed to try and make it look like it can be moved. Ultimately, the bees, that would definitely be an interesting one to move, but the idea was that if we have a potted garden, rather than going really crazy with the plants, then it would make it look a little bit more like it could all just be packed up and moved around, and you can travel the country this way. Ultimately, I really feel like I should have had a car, and just going through everything now, that's what I'm thinking, that actually I've missed opportunity there. That's my fault, but that's okay, it is what it is. And, you know, maybe had something to make it look like it was a trailer rather than a house itself, but that's difficult enough. I've tried it before and tried to make it look like there's wheels, etc., and that's crazy. So I kind of like how I've put the idea across, and hopefully it actually does look like that. But whether you believe so or not, that's fine. You might not, but either way, it's cute. I love it. I've never built anything this small before, and it really was a challenge. I was thinking, 20 minutes, it's not going to take me that long. It felt forever. 2 hours is a long time when you're sitting there just frustrated, not knowing what to do. This was certainly a big learning curve for me on how to get so much in such a small space. And that's definitely something that's going to stay with me, and maybe we'll start seeing it on my other builds too, that actually I'm thinking about that space more rather than having the 20 little squares, just all nice and clear, and sitting there like, hey, you can have an exercise routine up here, you can run around this house, and you don't need to worry about anything else. So anyway, the outside, it's starting to come together a little bit more. I wanted to not have it look quite so random. I wanted it to all join up, so I didn't want to go over the top with the exterior decoration. So I end up putting on lots of bushes just to kind of section areas off. So we section off the area with I forgot what it's called, the barbecue. And then also the same again for like the little work area that I've added. It just kind of distinguishes it a little bit and sections it out, but at the same time I felt like it needed the greenery, it needed that there, and yet at the same time I didn't want to go over the top with making it all pretty. So I made dirt roads rather than any sort of pretty pavement. I kind of just went with the aesthetic more than anything, which is why I decided on that rather than going with paving. And I just added in some wildflowers just to cheer it up, give it a bit of colour. And you may also be able to tell that I went into build mode through the world manager rather than carry on the way I was, because I was getting frustrated where everything was looking dead because of the season and where I had play tested things to make sure it worked. And lastly, I remembered what the roof was meant to look like and actually feel like the build was completed and looked how it was meant to. It all came together nicely once I sorted the roof out. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thank you for choosing this video. Stay passionate about The Sims, stay passionate about life, keep living, and just have an amazing day and enjoy the sunshine where you can.